And what has been reaction like from the Jewish community today?
This comes amidst a wave, an unprecedented wave.
The Jewish community has been taking a beating for a while now in Canada, and it's just getting worse. Recently, there's been a threat to numerous, we're talking over 100 different buildings across Canada, Jewish buildings, places of prayer, meeting halls, you name it. They all got an email at the same time with a threat of bad news. We've also got a union president who represents over 700,000 workers across Canada running his mouth and getting caught. So let's jump into this. So first off, we got union president here, Fred Hahn. He, I'm not going to read this out, but he says he apologizes for comparing Jews to T-word, pterodactyls. So what happened here? He's the president of Cpac Ontario. He represents 700,000 workers. He made a post on Facebook here. It says a repost, which featured a man with the Star of David in his arm diving into a pool, transforming into a boom boom as he landed among civilians. He apologized for the post, stating he did not intend to compare, blah, blah. Yeah, right. You posted this for a reason, man. You're an anti-Semite. You don't like Jewish people. This guy backtracked on his words. You know, he got caught. He got caught running in his mouth and, you know, posting something really stupid and racist. But not only that, conservative, a provincial conservative here, David Piccini, he called him out straight to his face.
All that we're seeing today is a labor league. We've got to represent the members. And what you've said...
I need you to know that I am representing the members. I am not talking about Jews. I'm talking about the state. I am talking about the state of Israel. And I represent 290,000 workers. I am representing Jews. 190,000 workers.
You have to stop hurting on Jews.
This is about the state of Israel.
Remain open to your members, but you have to stop hating Jews. And you have
You're
to
filming this, and I get that you're trying to do it for
stand up to the office of
Minister of Labor,
and you're a labor leader.
and I represent
Your members deserve better. They deserve better than
just re-elected me.
They deserve better than
Look,
This guy's like, they just re-elected me. Just so smug. So smug.
state of Israel.
How are you thinking?
So the article says he represents 700,000. He says 295 or whatever thousand. Either way, it's a lot of people. This guy is just a smug pile of garbage. Let's call him what he is. He doesn't like that he was called out by David there. Point blank. He needs to be fired. He inspires hate speech all the time and fully admits he represents the union workers. Has he ever asked them? Imagine having the slime ball represent you. Even worse, imagine having to pay monthly for it. So this doesn't end here. Doug Ford then spoke up about this right at the end of this 31-minute press conference here. He had some choice words.
Thank you. If that's it, I just want to give my minister, David Piccini, a big shout out for his comments about Fred Hahn yesterday. I'm proud of you, David, and this guy's been a bully for 20 years. And do you know what's funny? I'm getting messages on my phone from QP members saying his comments have been disgusting. In my opinion, he's a disgusting human being anyways, but that's here nor there. You know, he says he's bigoted comments. It's unacceptable here in Ontario. We have 110 nationalities speaking 200 languages, and we all need to get together. And I encourage QP Canada, someone has to discipline this guy, and I encourage the workers next time a vote comes, vote this character out. Because in my opinion, he's just a terrible, terrible human being. Thank you.
He just straight up called him a disgusting human being and a terrible human being. You can see these guys were chuckling too when he said it. So in Canada today, it's not really such a friendly place to be, I would imagine, if you're Jewish. Just with stuff like that, add in the Palestinian protesters calling for the extermination of Jewish people in our streets, which is a hate crime. It's against the law. They should be all put in jail for doing that every time. Now, I'm not saying every Palestinian protest goes to that level, but many of them do. I mean, it's in their chance. It's a tough situation here to be in Canada and be Jewish. You're just treated like garbage, essentially, even by your own government. With that said, things get worse. So our top story here, RCMP investigating bomb threat sent to Jewish institutions across Canada. So basically the bomb threat said it was sent to at least 100 hospitals, companies, government institutions, among other buildings here. It says Integrated National Security Enforcement Team out of Montreal is leading the investigation and is trying to determine the sender's IP address. You know how they could get that? They could just ask the same team that hacked Give, Send, Go for the Freedom Convoy. I'm sure they could figure it out. Why don't you give Justin Trudeau a call? Maybe he's got their phone number. He said the team was aware of the email sent in India and that it was in contact with international partners to see if suspects have been identified and whether similar events were sent out in other places as well. Captain Schmuck released a message on X, the typical stuff saying he cares, but he doesn't. The RCMP is in contact with enforcement to investigate, and we're working with them to keep the Jewish Canadians safe, he added. Jewish Canadians will not be intimidated. We will continue to take part in Canadian society and Jewish life. We will stay vigilant, blah, blah, blah. Like, Trudeau doesn't care. He allows those Palestinian protests calling for their extermination to happen in the streets of Canada with no arrests. You've already shown your hand, Trudeau. You don't care about the Jewish people in Canada.
B'nai B'rith says more than 100 Jewish institutions in this country were targeted with bomb threats this morning. For the latest on that situation, we're now joined by B'nai B'rith Canada's Director of Research and Advocacy, Richard Robertson. Thanks so much for making time for us and for talking to us about this fluid situation. You say all of the Jewish institutions received an identical email at 5 o'clock this morning threatening explosions, including at their offices here in this city and in Montreal. First of all, what can you tell us about the nature of these threats?
Well, the threats did come in via one mass email at 5 a.m. this morning. They threatened that explosive devices were already planted at Jewish institutions and several hospitals across Canada, and that those devices would be detonated in the coming hours. This was a threat that we took very seriously. Obviously, anytime our offices or the offices of Jewish institutions are harmed, we take immediate action. So we immediately alerted the local police, in this case the Toronto Police, as well as law enforcement in various jurisdictions across Canada. And we're very grateful for the swift response from law enforcement to the threat.
Right. So you say this is obviously something you took very seriously right from the get-go. Sounds like Toronto police here at home are taking it just as seriously as well. What has your correspondence with Toronto police been like? What is the police service saying about this investigation?
Well, the investigation is still in its infancy. Obviously, we shared the email with the police, and it's our hope that as soon as possible, the perpetrator or perpetrators of the threat will be uncovered and that they'll be brought to justice.
What exactly is that justice in Trudeau's Canada? Are they going to let them out on bail, or are they going to get 3 months house arrest where they play Xbox and just chill out? Like, that's what happens in this country. Nothing happens. What if they had the smoking gun? They knew exactly who it was. Would they actually put the guy in jail? Or will they just take him out for brunch?
Email to receive, and one that targets so many all over the country. What was your initial reaction to receive something like that? And what has been reaction like from the Jewish community today?
Yeah, it was not a nice morning to wake up to that, but immediately we went to work. These are situations that we unfortunately have to prepare for as a Jewish advocacy organization, and our immediate reaction was concern for the community and to ensure that the threats were mitigated. So our first step was to contact law enforcement. And in terms of the reaction from the community, the community's uneased by this. It's incredibly troubling, but this isn't entirely shocking. This comes amidst a wave, an unprecedented wave of anti-Semitism amongst a period of increased incitement against the Jewish community. So it was really only a matter of time before something like this happened. And it's important now that we take this as a wake-up call to ensure that additional threats like this don't occur in the future.
Richard, my understanding is that synagogues, Jewish community centers, and hospitals in Toronto and Montreal received this threat. Can you confirm any of the hospitals or that may have received this threat? I know there's only so much you can say for safety reasons, but is there anything more you can tell us about that?
Certainly, Jewish organizations across the country, from Newfoundland to British Columbia, were targets of this threat, as well as several hospitals in the Ottawa area. Okay. The scope of the organizations targeted is truly shocking. There wasn't a province, I don't believe, or an area of the country that didn't receive a threat. Threatening
to blow up a hospital or trying to or successfully blowing up a hospital should result in life in prison with no parole. And not only that, they should have to dig ditches for the rest of their life. That's what should happen here. Anyone disagree? What kind of sick fool would want to blow up a hospital?
And is there a message that you have for Jewish institutions and members of the Jewish community as you wait to learn more from police services all over the country? Obviously, this is a very difficult day and people must be on edge.
Certainly, we must remain vigilant, but we cannot be intimidated. The purpose of this email was to intimidate the Jewish community, and we must remain resolute in our faith.
Now, CBC had a little segment on this as well. I'm going to play like a couple minutes of, because they brought on Anthony Housefather, a Liberal MP. So a little bit of a different take.
In Montreal, the Hampstead synagogue was among the places targeted. The email said that bombs had been placed in the building. RCMP are still trying to determine if it's a foreign actor or not. B'nai B'rith says it and 100 other institutions, including synagogues, received bomb threats. For more on this, let's bring in Anthony Housefather. He is special advisor to the federal government on Jewish community relations and anti-Semitism. He is also a Quebec Liberal Party MP representing the riding of Mount Royal. So first of all, obviously, let me get your reaction here. What ran through your mind when you heard about so many Jewish institutions across Canada being targeted by threats today?
Unfortunately, it's not in the least bit surprising. It seems like every day there's a new anti-Semitic type of incident that occurs. These types of threats are unfortunately not new. Since October the 7th of last year, they have just come more and more frequently. Jews make up about 1.2% of Canada's population. More than 50% of hate crimes are against Jews in most jurisdictions these days. Over 70% of religious-based hate crimes in many jurisdictions. And unfortunately, we're getting quite used to this.
Why won't you guys do anything about it then? You guys let the protesters push this anti-Semitism in the streets. You're quite literally part of the team that's in charge here that's causing the problem.
Threats via email. What have community members been telling you about how it makes them feel?
So ultimately, there were many synagogues in my riding that actually received these threats. The first one that I heard about was the Adath Israel. That was the first one reported. I spoke to the rabbi. The congregation was evacuated earlier this morning. They then, did a sweep of the building. They found nothing there. People went back in. They've also benefited from the federal security infrastructure program to improve security at the building. And in the end, throughout Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, BC, the other institutions that were targeted by the email, nothing was found. I spoke to the public safety ministry right away to make sure the RCMP was coordinating with local police. They are. And hopefully we'll find and catch the person and charge the person who did this.
That's what I want to
charge them with what? Once again, you taking them out to brunch? House arrest? What is it?
Actually ask you about, because I certainly have read some press releases from RCMP and from local police saying that they have gone to the various buildings that have been under threat and ensured that there was no danger there. And as you say, have not to this point found any. But what about the investigation beyond that? Because it's one thing to have the threat, finding out who might be responsible. What hopes do you have that could be achieved?
I mean, again, we don't know. The IP address could be from out of the country. We don't know who did this, but I assume that RCMP is taking this very seriously. This is what I have been told.
Back in July, you became the federal government's special advisor on Jewish community relations and anti-Semitism. Can you talk to us about what it's been like to step into that role during a time of such heightened tensions?
I mean, I have a community that has been incredibly frustrated by what they've seen as a lack of action by all governments. This is true not only in Canada.
By all governments? Really? All the other governments aren't in control. This guy is just worthless.
Canada, but across the Western world, where anti-Semitism has dramatically increased, and yet governments haven't stepped up to the Jewish community satisfaction. One of the things that I've been working on very closely with Deborah Lyons, who's our special envoy on anti-Semitism, is a safe return to campus. One of the worst places last year to be a Jewish Canadian was at our university campus, where there were encampments, there were threats against Jewish students, there was abuse of classroom pulpits.
Does this guy not know who he works for? You guys can quite literally roll in the military police, do crackdowns. I mean, you guys literally lock down Canadians' bank accounts. You can't get rid of a few angry protesters that are laying on the grass in university grounds, really?
And Jewish students, many of them left very, very scared at the end of the year. We worked closely with University Canada, with U15, with Jewish institutions like B'nai B'rith, CIJA, and Simon Wiesenthal, and universities themselves to come out with a list of what we think universities need to do for a safe return to campus in September. We put out that letter last week. We're counting on a positive response from colleges and universities across the country. And this is what needs to be seen. The Jewish community doesn't just want words, they want actions. We're taking action at the university level, even though it's provincial jurisdiction.
You guys have quite literally done nothing for the Jewish community in Canada. I'm not Jewish. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not religious, but it's just, I'm sickened by it. You can quite literally just tell the police to arrest every single person that causes a hate crime in our country. But they don't. The police don't. They take their mandates from you guys. The higher ups at RCMP have probably sent out a memo saying, let those people roam the streets calling for their extermination. Don't arrest them. No, no, no. Hate crimes don't matter in this country anymore. This guy is completely involved in it. He could fix the problem if he wanted to, and he doesn't. He doesn't want to, because I'm sure Papa Trudeau told him not to.
We're working with the public safety minister on things like making Samadoun recognized as a terrorist organization, like having better prosecution of hate crimes.
That Samadoun that he just mentioned were protesting downtown Vancouver at the Olympic Torch just the other day. Where's the cops? I just showed it on this channel, my second channel, on my previous video. No cops showed up. Bunch of terrorists meeting. Like, this country is like completely gone mad. Like, at some point, do the citizens have to develop our own police force to control government? Like, what happens next here? I don't know. Are we going to have to develop the citizens police where we can actually police our own country because our government is worthless?
Crimes, like having improvements to the criminal code, on bubble legislation to protect entrance to and exit from community buildings. And I just tried to make sure that the community sees that it's action, not just words.
The easiest solution here is just to have people go to jail for doing crimes. That's it. Someone steals a car. Okay, you're in 15 years in jail. Now you're digging ditches for the next 15 years to pay for your food and stay in the jail. That's it. People don't want to dig ditches for 15 years for stealing a $100,000 car. The reason why they do it in Canada is because they get a little slap on the wrist. They play Xbox for 3 months in house arrest, and then they can go and steal another car. There's no repercussions. That's why if people were thrown in jail for a year for doing hate speech in the streets during their protests, now protesting is allowed, but calling for extermination of another group is not, they were all thrown in jail for a year having to dig ditches or maintain trails or clean out sewers or whatever else, put in hard work 8 hours a day to pay for their keep in the jail for the next year because they did hate speech. Guess what? They're going to get out of jail and they're not going to do any hate speech because they don't want to go back to doing that. Anthony Housefather acts as if, oh, we're trying to, work our best to deal with this, but there's governments. Like, what governments was he talking about? American government? Are you talking about Chile? Madagascar? Which governments? The Conservatives? That's what it sounded like to me. The Conservatives, the NDP, the Greens. All governments not stepping up. If the Liberals do something wrong, it's all of the parties. It's not them. They always blame or they'll attach themselves to all the other parties. Say it's all of us. It's not just us. The Liberals are a bunch of losers who never take accountability for anything. They know what they're doing. They know what they've allowed. I would be absolutely livid if I was a member of the Jewish community in this country. And that's part of my role here. I speak for all Canadians. I've said on the channel too, I feel bad for what's going on in Palestine, especially if you're a Palestinian in this country. You don't like what all the crazy protesting Palestinians who are calling for the extermination are doing. Now you're painted as one of them. Like, that's also terrible. We need to have a screening process that doesn't allow all the crazy vigilante people coming into our country so the peaceful ones can live in peace. And you know what? I bet you those peaceful Palestinians, they peacefully live with the peaceful Jewish people. I bet they both live in peace because they don't want to have anything to do with all the craziness on the other side of the planet. Now, something to know about this bomb threat. Was it sent by the Palestinians who are, raging in the streets and wanting the extermination of Jews? Could have been. We don't know that. So really, we're not going to assume anything. It could have been sent by just some crazy person on the other side of the planet. It could have been sent from a member of the Green Party. It could have been someone who used to be an ex-Canadian who moved to Somalia and is just having some fun and trying to stir stuff up. Either way, it needs to be punished to the full extent of the law. And if the full extent of the law is pathetic and useless, then we need to increase the full extent of the law. 10 years, 15 years in jail, put these people away, get them building roads, digging ditches, maintaining our sewer systems, get these people put to work, have them earn their keep, and maybe they'll think differently the next time they threaten our country.